Alrighty, now we're here. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate that. My name is Marquise King Mason. I use he, him pronouns, and I work for Communities for a Healthy Bay. We are going to get started now. So I'm going to screen share, and we're going to get everyone introduced, and we're going to get rock and rolling. Just give me 2 seconds to screen share, and we will. Okay, let's see. Alrighty. Okay. And here we go. So again, thanks for joining. My name is Marquise, like I mentioned. You are at the Tacoma Green New Deal kickoff event, which is so exciting. Folks in Tacoma have been working on the Tacoma Green New Deal for literally forever, maybe 5 ever at this point. Again, it was created by Sunrise Movement Tacoma, and now we have kind of launched into a full coalition. So you're going to hear from lots of different folks as we continue forward. So before I start, I just want to kind of acknowledge a land acknowledgement. If any Indigenous folks in the chat want to drop some of their thoughts and feelings, we would love to have that. It's really important to honor Indigenous people as we talk about land acknowledgements and we talk about the land that we settle on. But yeah, we are occupying the traditional land of the Puyallup people and other Coast Salish peoples, depending on where you're at in Tacoma. We have a lot of work to do to truly honor and connect with Indigenous communities. I know I'm, even though I am a person of color, I am, a settler to this land. This is not the land that my family grew up on. And so honoring that and acknowledging that as we move through the world, I think is really important. I think especially as environmentalists, we kind of think about justice and equity, but we don't always, or the environmental movement hasn't always been there, unfortunately. So we have a lot of work to do to make sure we're having true accountable relationships with Indigenous folks. For me and my community specifically, it is the Puyallup and Nisqually people. Some folks on this call might be on other land, and I think understanding which land you're on is really important. So if anybody wants to drop any thoughts about the land that they're on in the chat, we'd love to hear from you. And yeah. So this is the Tacoma Green New Deal Coalition. It is composed of Communities for a Healthy Bay, Sunrise Tacoma, 350 Tacoma, and Tacoma DSA. So I'm going to let all the coalition members introduce themselves because I already have. So Mariana, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, thank you all. It's super exciting to see so many people on this call. Yeah, so my name is Mariana. My pronouns are they, them, and she, her. I've been involved with the Sunrise Movement for, I don't know, maybe 2+ years. Time is kind of not real anymore. But yeah, Sunrise Tacoma is a hub of the National Sunrise Movement. And we are a movement of young people trying to pass a Green New Deal and creating millions of good jobs in the process. So yeah, super excited to be here, and I'll pass it to 350 Tacoma.
Janine, do you want me to, I can unmute you.
I didn't hear that you passed it to me. Thank you, Mariana. Hi, I'm Janine Provazic, and I am a volunteer in the leadership circle of 350 Tacoma, which is a climate and climate justice organization, a part of the larger 350.org network. And very excited to be here. And hello to everyone out there. And I will pass it to Nicole.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I use she, her pronouns. I'm also with 350 Tacoma and have been for a little over a year now. And I can go ahead and pass it to Ty.
Hi, my name is Ty Moore. I'm a campaign coordinator with Tacoma DSA, Democratic Socialists of America. Been active with the organization for a few years and really happy to be here.
Awesome. So thank you so much for introducing yourselves, everybody. Alrighty, we're going to get started. So thanks to our funders, we are funded by the folks like the Department of Ecology through the Public Participation Grant, the Tacoma Creates Foundation. Is Tacoma Creates Foundation? I think Tacoma Creates is a foundation. They basically do arts advocacy and cultural advocacy in Tacoma through a ballot initiative that got the funding. The Harder Foundation, the Bullet Foundation, and the Horizon Foundation. So really appreciate all the folks who make this really important work possible. Alrighty, so I'm going to pass it over to Ty from Tacoma Democratic Socialists of America to talk about what's going on in the world and why we are even here today. So Ty, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, thank you, Marquise. And again, really excited to be here and part of this, I think, very important discussion with all of you. Think global, act local. That was a bumper sticker I remember seeing growing up here in the Pacific Northwest. That's a motto that's, can sound kind of just catchy, but I think has really guided a lot of the organizing work I've done for the last 25 years. But maybe more today than ever, as the catastrophic impacts of climate change and global capitalism's addiction to fossil fuels are felt more and more by billions of people. That old bumper sticker slogan, I think, has achieved a more profound significance. I think we need to approach our organizing work here in Tacoma for a Green New Deal with a clear understanding of our place, our specific role in the global movement for social and ecological justice. Ukraine's top climate scientist, Svetlana Krakovska, is one of the authors of the most recent IPCC report. And she recently pointed out the parallels between climate change and this war. She said, quote, "It's clear that the roots of both of these threats to humanity are found in fossil fuels." She continued that burning oil, gas, and coal is causing warming and impacts that we need to adapt to. And Russia sells these resources and uses the money to buy weapons. Other countries are dependent on fossil fuels. They don't make themselves free of them. This is a fossil fuel war. It's clear we cannot continue to live this way. It will destroy our civilization, she said. I think this is far from the first fossil fueled war. 5 million people died from the US invasion and occupation of Iraq. The ongoing conflicts in Syria, Yemen, Algeria, and many other countries are fueled by global competition to control fossil fuel supplies. The latest report from the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which dropped this last week, is being called a final warning by a lot of climate scientists. And they say it's a final warning because unless the world starts reducing climate pollution by 2025, in 3 years, the chances of avoiding 1.5 degrees warming by mid-century are close to zero. Climate scientists, as the slide shows, have pointed to 5 possible scenarios. And 4 of those 5 have us hitting the 1.5 degrees Celsius in 20 years by 2040. And of course, this danger, the danger exists of going way above 1.5. Of these 5 scenarios, the world is currently on pace for the worst 2 of them. I want to have Marquise cue up this video, and then I'll continue after that.
Do we have audio? Are we good for audio? Give me some thumbs, maybe.
Not.
Okay, let me try the screen share one more time. Maybe I have to go back in and, okay. This should work now. Let's see. Okay, and
If it doesn't work, I can fill the space in, no problem.
uh-oh. Yeah, there's new settings on the share, and I don't know how to. Okay, let's try this. Okay, let's see if that works. No.
Why don't I kind of finish out, and then if you can make it work by at the end, we can play at the end. That'll be fine.
Cool.
Make sense?
Sounds great.
So these 5 scenarios that we saw in the previous that the climate scientists have worked out, I want to point out all of that was before the Ukraine war further destabilized global politics. At the very moment when defending the future viability of human civilization requires an unprecedented level of global cooperation, we're seeing escalating global tensions between the world's most powerful economies. The war in Ukraine is horrific enough in the short-term consequences, but the bigger picture is equally concerning. At root, this war is a product of big power rivalries between the US and NATO, Russia, China, and their allies. It is a proxy war in the sharpening competition for control of world markets, for control of resources. And the only path to reducing global emissions is the major polluting economies of the world, China, Russia, US, Europe, to cooperate with one another. We need political leaders in each of these countries willing to stand up against the short-term profit demands of their respective corporations and put the long-term interests of humanity and the environment first. We need political leaders in each of these countries to completely redefine what we mean by national interests, putting the needs of regular people, the environment, and our collective future over the greed and power lust of traditional elites. But instead, of course, Russia is waging a horrific war with the tacit backing of China. Instead, we see Biden expanding US oil production and cutting rotten deals with the Saudi Arabia dictatorship to do the same. But there is another way out of this crisis. Naomi Klein, in her now classic book, The Shock Doctrine, described how corporate and political elites have used moments of crisis to rapidly reshape economies and politics in their interests. But she also points out in the same book that for our social movements, the same opportunity exists if we are well organized, if we are clear-headed, and prepared to act boldly and decisively when moments of opportunity, moments of crisis arrive at our doorstep. And we are right now living through a whole series of crises, from COVID to the economic upheavals, to climate change, to wars, to unprecedented waves of refugees at our borders, at Europe's borders, around the world. The lives of tens of millions of people are being upended again and again. Trust and confidence in traditional institutions is at an all-time low, and millions of people are recognizing that unless they take things into their own hands, unless we build movements, unless they fight back, history is not going to go well for most of us. But that is the point of hope, is that millions of people are beginning, whether it's the youth climate strikes, whether it's the Amazon workers organizing, whether it's the anti-war movement in Russia itself, we see people standing up and saying, no, we want a different direction. And I think this is where the promise of the Green New Deal offers a powerful vision for a different future, a positive future where the needs of ordinary people, the needs of the environment are put above the needs of the fossil fuel corporations, put ahead of Wall Street's profit-driven interests. To address the economic inequality, the racism and lack of investment in communities of color, to address the sexist wage gap between men and women. As Kate Aronoff, the acclaimed climate journalist, DSA member, pointed out in her excellent new book on the Green New Deal, Overheated, published last year, Kate Aronoff said, we can harness a different kind of feedback loop by prioritizing climate policies that make people's lives better in the short run. We can grow the power of democratic institutions like labor unions. A Green New Deal can swell the multiracial working class coalition invested in designing and fighting to expand those programs as they scale back emissions and build up a fairer and cleaner economy. That was a long sentence, but a very good one. She continued, and it can create durable electoral majorities to ensure that those changes stick around for decades to come. What critics of the Green New Deal have tended to miss is that the policy ambitions are the same as the political strategy. If we lift everybody up at the same time as we fight to end climate catastrophe, that is a winning strategy. You can't separate social justice from ecological justice if we want to win either. For me, the last few weeks of war have only underscored this hard reality. We're going to need major political changes, social changes in this country if we want to achieve climate justice. And the vision of a Green New Deal offers a rallying point, a set of policies and political strategies to transform our country and world. One important thing the IPCC report underscored was that we have all the technical know-how, all the scientific know-how we need to reverse global warming. What is lacking is political will. What is lacking is a movement powerful enough to force our leaders to change course, to force the fundamental economic and political changes we need to see. We know that, here in Tacoma, even if we achieve all of our policy goals with the Tacoma Green New Deal here, it will only be a drop in the bucket in terms of what's needed globally. But we also know that movements can be infectious. A victory for the Green New Deal here in Tacoma can give confidence and raise the horizons of activists and ordinary people across the state of Washington, across the country, and around the world. So I say, let's get this party started. Let's build the movement we need.
Awesome. Thank you, Ty. All righty, we're going to switch gears a little bit, everybody. we're going to talk about the local Tacoma climate impacts. We know that climate change is not just a global issue like Ty spoke about. It affects not only the coastlines, but it affects people inland, and it affects Tacomans specifically. So Nicole from 350 Tacoma is going to take it away, and we're going to talk about a little bit about kind of what we're facing with climate change.
Hi, again, I'm Nicole from 350 Tacoma. So I'm just going to talk about how our local climate is warming and the impacts it's having locally. So the next slide, please. Our local climate is warming. We have had some very significant warming events in Washington these past few years. I would like to draw attention to perhaps one of the most shocking, the heat dome last year. A once in 1,000 years type of event made 150 times more likely due to climate change that we will see again in our lifetimes. In our immediate area for 3 days in a row, we had temperatures over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, peaking at 108 degrees Fahrenheit near SeaTac, but much higher elsewhere. We had mass marine life die-offs, human lives lost, and Mount Tahoma lost 30% of its snowpack in just 4 days. I'll talk more in the next slides about how warming is affecting our local climate. We'll have more very hot days. Our seasons are shifting, and we are going to get more hot days as a result. On average, in our region, we can expect 20 to 30 more hot days a year. This will especially impact those who live in urban heat islands, including low income and people of color, agricultural workers who are largely Latino, and the young and elderly. It will also lead to a reduction in our snowpack. To continue with the warming trend and how it affects different aspects of our local climate, let's talk about the snowpack. We need a full snowpack to support everything from taking a shower to irrigating crops to keeping rivers full for salmon. While we still get a lot of snow, especially during the recent atmospheric river events, that snow is warmer than usual. Warmer snow is quicker to melt and not to mention dangerous for winter activities and past conditions. Last year, we actually had an above average snowpack, but it was quickly depleted during the heat dome event. This year, we are at a below average snowpack and have already seen 10% melt on top of that. We can expect these trends to continue and worsen if no substantial action is taken to mitigate the warming. And this also leads to a higher winter stream flow. Due to warming winters, we've got a lot of melt when we don't really need it. It almost seems like this winter was atmospheric river after atmospheric river, and that led to a lot of winter flooding when we should have had snowpack building. Skagit Valley dealt with significant flooding, and I-5 was even shut down for a few days. Atmospheric rivers are going to continue to increase in intensity and frequency, and this means we will continue to get water when we can't use it. And it also leads to a lower summer stream flow. Early season melt will lead to lower summer stream flow of our fresh waterways. This will be made worse by the heat waves we have. It's already having a significant impact on salmon populations and irrigation for crops. Summer is peak water demand time, but we won't have the water to meet that demand with unmanaged warming. I think the example we can really look at here is what California is dealing with. Their snowpack continues to struggle, they're getting less rain, and their lakes are drying up. This poses a risk to human populations and wildlife and plant life. It will especially put us in a bad position to manage wildfires. And on top of that, we're dealing with sea level rise. In the Puget Sound, we aren't going to deal with nearly the same devastating effects of sea level rise as, say, Miami and coastal Texas, but we will have communities impacted. I want to draw your attention to the Quinault Indian tribe. They are already dealing with rising tides and preparing for a future where their home is once again taken away from them. They are building new infrastructure, such as schools and community centers on higher ground, and prepared to move over 650 of their people away from the rising seas. In addition to the Quinault people moving, the Hoh and Shoalwater Bay people are also having to relocate. And right now, we're close to locking in 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit of warming. The most recent IPCC working group report says that we are at a now or never turning point. We have 3 years to let fossil fuel use peak and then drastically lower it. We are fighting to keep warming as low as we can, but we are on track to warm 2.7 degrees. This will have absolutely devastating effects in a lot of the world, especially the global south, and we won't be immune to the impacts here either. We're looking at increased flooding, rising waters on the coast, 30 extra days of heat, and toxic air from pollution and wildfires. This is why we can't waste any more time to take concrete action. This is why Tacoma needs a Green New Deal.
Oh, my audio is off. Thank you so much, Nicole. Really appreciate it. Now we're gonna get moving to Mariana.
Yeah, thank you, both Nicole and Ty, for setting the tone of this. I do feel like, you know, we can get caught up in like how negative and like just horrific things are, but hopefully we can change gears into a more positive. And I do think that you know, activism is very hard, and it can be like very hard to put yourself out there and to do this work. So let's talk about how we can make Tacoma better and envision a city and a future where we're all thriving. Yeah, so the Green New Deal, this is why we're here. So Sunrise has led this process, and we're really excited to talk to you all about the three main pillars of the Tacoma Green New Deal, which were put together through listening session and a lot of work with community members. So the first pillar is the environmental justice pillar. There's a lot that goes into environmental justice, and to say that these three pillars do intersect quite a lot. But the environmental justice pillar mostly encompasses, you know, looking into the ways that we can ensure that the overburdened communities that we have in Tacoma are not more impacted from climate injustice. So we have 100% clean electricity, and we want fare free transit, and we want the creation of a climate justice task force. We really need to increase environmental education and obviously centering Indigenous voices in the restoration of Puget Sound salmon. So there's a lot that goes into all of these pillars and all of these different aspects. We won't get into all the details. Then we also have a just transition off fossil fuels. We have a really big hub of fossil fuels in Tacoma and in our neighborhoods. And that's very clear to us. So we need to move away from that. We need to have net zero carbon emissions. We need to get fracked gas out of homes. It's a really, really big issue. We need to establish a just transition fund. Again, talking about environmental justice here, like these things are intersectional, and we want people, we want a just transition for Tacomans and for the most impacted. We want a Tacoma community solar program. How cool would that be? And we want to protect the Tacoma tide flats because they are very important cultural grounds for the Puyallup tribe, and also just beautiful environment to protect. Finally, we have the good green jobs pillar. So here, talking more about the specifics of how do we do a just transition, and how do we ensure that people benefit locally from this policy. So we want to retrofit homes that need to have fracked gas out of their homes, and there's jobs that comes with that. And we want the city council to establish a green job corps to give people in the fossil fuel industry an opportunity to get out of those jobs and have a stable job security, because we care about them. They're not the enemy. And we want more affordable housing, and we definitely want to increase tree canopy in Tacoma, especially in the neighborhoods that do not have this privilege of having access to green spaces. So let's go to the next slide. Great. So the Tacoma Green New Deal is this like amazing, wonderful, like big framework. It's super it's like radical and it encompasses like so much. But with that, we have to look at like the existing policy priorities that we already have at hand to advance a Green New Deal in Tacoma. So through the Tacoma Green New Deal, we want to ensure that home in Tacoma local policy prioritizes density, transit-oriented development, and allows for affordable housing in Tacoma. We want to protect the dike flats by passing a sub-area plan that will invest in clean fuels, attracting green manufacturers, also restoring the ecosystem in the tide flats, and finally passing a Tacoma Green New Deal. So that is, we can move on to like the specific details of those in the next few slides. So again, home in Tacoma, I'm pretty sure a lot of you are aware of home in Tacoma. We really want to prioritize here, like the transit orientation, like land use, that will make Tacoma a wonderful place to live in with affordable housing for people who need it. And then next slide. In terms of the sub-area plan, it's been an ongoing process for such a long time, and we really need to push the needle here. We need to get more clean fuels in our port. We need to restore the tie flats and get better green jobs. And then let's go to the next slide. And we'll talk more about what it actually means to pass a Tacoma Green New Deal resolution, and we'll keep talking about home in Tacoma as well in the sub-area plan. So I'll actually pass it on to our next speaker to discuss more on these three things. So here we have with us Councilmember Joe Bushnell. We're super excited to have you. I remember when you were running for office, like you were one of the first candidates to actually sign our Tacoma Green New Deal pledge. So super excited that you're now in the city council. So I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Mariana. I cannot seem to turn on my video. Oh, there it goes. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. And yes, I was one of the first candidates, and for good reason. As a young person, even through my lifetime, I'm only 32. I've seen the climate change in our area significantly, and I felt like our leaders, from the local level all the way up to the national and international level, have not really taken the time to try and make the big bold changes that we need. We see time and time and again that action is not being taken, and that's not okay. I fear for my future. I fear for the future of, if I ever have kids and their grandkids, and what that's going to look like. And things do look bleak right now, and they really do. I mean, we heard from our previous speakers about, the warming that's going on. We're trying to keep it to 1.5, but even then, that's still showing that we are going to be warming up. That's still showing that we are going to have higher temperatures by average. That's still showing that we're going to have higher water levels. So we need to make sure that Tacoma is prepared for that future through climate resiliency, and be a leader in sustainability and that resiliency here in the Pacific Northwest, and try to be an example for those around the world that are looking for examples of how to do it the right way. How to beat back the fossil fuel industry, how to transition off of fossil fuels. And I really believe that Tacoma Green New Deal is that path forward, and it is bold. It is bold, and we need to work together to work with other council members and with other city leaders to show them that this is a path forward, that we can work together and we can make this just transition off of fossil fuels. Some of the things that we need to work on, obviously, is being able to incentivize fuel switching. We need to be able to make people have the ability to get off of fossil fuels if they wanted to. As far as I'm aware, there's no ability to do that currently. And also being able to transition off of fossil fuels means bringing in new jobs, like has been mentioned before. Green hydrogen we're in a fantastic area to bring hydrogen, to be that transition off of fossil fuels and use it as a way to bring green and clean energy to our community as well, aside from electricity, which also is very important. And then, as you'd mentioned previously, really focusing in on home in Tacoma, I was really actually disappointed in the kind of tailored down version of home in Tacoma that we saw last year before I got onto city council. I would like to see more transit-oriented development, more density along our corridors, and that brings vibrant communities into Tacoma. The funny thing is people always say, "Don't Seattle my Tacoma." Well, if you want to keep going down the path we're going, then we're going to look like Seattle. So there's some irony there. We really need a plan for the growth, and we need to do it appropriately. We need to make sure it's just for everybody, and having that increased density helps the environment. Yeah, that's all I really have at the moment. But thank you so much for allowing me to come here and speak with you all. And I'm really excited for the work that we're going to be doing moving forward.
Thank you so much, Joe. Really appreciate it. Next, we're going to have Evlando Cooper talk about some of the work that the Sustainable Tacoma Commission has done around the Climate Action Plan.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy to see so many people on the data here to talk about climate action on a Friday afternoon. My name is Evlando Cooper, he, him. I'm a member of Tacoma DSA. I'm also co-chair of the Sustainable Tacoma Commission, which was created to bring transparency and accountability to the city's climate and environmental actions, including the recently adopted Climate Action Plan. I also write about climate and energy for a living. I say all that to say that I've been in the climate and environmental justice space for a long time, but I haven't been this excited about the prospects for achieving meaningful change until I moved to Tacoma a few years ago and met an informed and engaged community of activists working to make our community a more humane and livable space. The Climate Action Plan is designed as a pathway for Tacoma to reach its target of net zero emissions by 2050 by taking transformative climate action now. It is a huge and ambitious plan, and I want to say a few things about it and how you can be involved. The main thing I want to say about it is that it is a victory for activists in scale and ambition. The Climate Action Plan would not exist in the form that it exists now without the work of all of you and your groups and your organizations organizing around a climate emergency and pushing the city to take action. Efforts like Home in Tacoma are victories for activists. The discussion of housing and green housing especially, if not for the work of all of you on this call and your organizations and the tireless work, would not exist. The Green New Deal will be a victory for activists. The realization of these efforts will depend on your ongoing organizing. And here are a few things that I encourage you to do, especially as someone who sits on a city body who also is involved in activist work. First, learn what's in the Climate Action Plan and prioritize. Which again, it is a big plan. It has a lot of moving parts and mechanisms. You must familiarize yourself with that so you can use it as leverage to get what you want to see enacted in the city. People are already pointing to the Climate Action Plan to push back against the South Tacoma Warehouse Project, which some of you may have heard of, on the ground that it violates the recently adopted Climate Action Plan. So having knowledge of that plan, what's in it, and how you can use it is incredibly important. Number two, hold the city accountable, like you have been doing. Show up at city council meetings, contact your city council representatives to let the council know what climate actions are important to you and ask them to prioritize funding for those actions. Get involved in city decision-making and budgeting. Participate on a city committee, board, commission, neighborhood council, or future participatory budgeting process. The more people of like mind that we have in a room when these decisions are being made, the more that we can have a kind of outside, inside organizing strategy that actually sees these changes implemented at the city level. So please get involved, join a commission, join a board. Lastly, talk to your friends, family members, and neighbors about climate change, the local impacts we're experiencing, and the solutions available to us. You know, somebody who works on this, I just assume everybody is worried about climate change and knows exactly, has the jargon and knowledge to kind of understand what's going on, but that's not true. People are busy. They have really busy, hard, difficult lives, and climate change may seem like something that's an abstraction to them. Make it real for them, but don't just doom and gloom them. Tell them how they can be involved. Like was discussed earlier, the last few IPCC reports have been very dire. But what I take from the latest one, to reiterate what Ty said earlier, mitigating the worst consequences of climate change is still within our grasp. The powers that be are definitely aligned against us, but these battles at this local, state, and regional level are definitely battles that we can win. So anyway, thank you for being here. Thank you for giving me some time to speak, and I'll turn it back over to Marquise.
Thank you so much. Evelyn, I really appreciate it. I think your work is so valuable to combining the outside game with the inside game, doing really good work at the city level, and also helping us advocates, stay up to date. It's really appreciated. Now we're really quickly focusing on talk about getting engaged in the fight for Tacoma Green New Deal. You've heard all of our different diverse perspectives, right? Not every group here is speaking from the same place, but we're all kind of working alongside each other to kind of push on the levers that we know are really important. And so now we want to get y'all engaged in this fight as well. So this is our timeline to win. This is an ambitious proposal, and it's an ambitious organizing effort, but we know that there's smaller pieces and chunks that we can take this really important work into our hands, right? Recognizing that different groups are focusing on different areas, right? DSA is focusing on housing. CHB is focusing on the sub-area plan, but we're all working together to kind of get progress right in front of us. So yeah, this kind of our tentative timeline. We know that the Home in Tacoma Phase 2 proposal should be passing sometime this year. We imagine that the sub-area planning process, it's a 5-government process between the Puyallup Tribe of Indians, the City of Fife, the City of Tacoma, Pierce County, and the Port. That plan should be passing either really late this year or early in 2023. And then we know that, even if we do really well in Home in Tacoma, even if we do really well in the sub-area plan, we still need to make sure that there's pieces of the Tacoma Green New Deal that make it into reality. As a lot of folks have said, we have roughly 3 years to basically peak at emissions, obviously, hopefully sooner if we can. And then we basically have another 5 years to get the majority of the infrastructure either in place or prepared to basically spend the next 2 decades after that running to net zero as fast as possible. So we know we have a lot of different things to do at once. And so this is kind of our plan to win that. We know that winning a Tacoma Green New Deal is going to be very impactful for Tacoma because it's going to allow us to do a lot of things that we haven't been able to do before. And one of those major reasons is because of new funding sources, right? The federal government has passed some bills in recent with bipartisan infrastructure and some of the new funding bills that just passed and that potentially will pass in 2022 have huge buckets of funding that will allow us to do some of this really important work, right? Folks are always like, how do you fund this? This is pie in the sky. Actually, it's not. There are dollars, there are federal dollars that the City of Tacoma right now is looking at, the Office of Environmental Policy and Sustainability is looking at, and we're looking at to make sure that we can fund these really important priorities. We know that if we have strong, robust plans now, it allows us to get real important dollars into here now. Some of those funding pools are going to be, there's $1 billion federally for strengthening mobility and revolutionizing transportation. That's something that we can really use to make sure that we're prioritizing transit-oriented development and things like Home in Tacoma. There's $2.5 billion federally that we can tap into for the port, making sure that we have infrastructure in place to deal with climate change, to reduce congestion, and to improve the quality of conditions in the port so that it's more user-friendly and it's more recreational friendly as well. And then you'll see the last point here, there's $550 million in energy efficiency efforts. That the City of Tacoma can use that to help us do energy efficiency projects to reduce the energy consumption of homes, because we know that actually energy in homes and buildings is the fastest growing source of emissions in Washington. So it's time to take action for Tacoma Green New Deal. So you can do a couple things. So I'm gonna have everyone from their respective groups drop their social media info in the chat so folks can follow us. You'll see the social media from Communities for Healthy Bay, the social media from TDSA, the social media from Sunrise Tacoma, the social media from 350, so that folks can plug into all of these important campaigns that we're running. If you feel passionate, you can plug into a campaign focus area, because you've already heard that we're focusing on Home in Tacoma, the sub-area plan, and the Tacoma Green New Deal Coalition is where we're here at right now today. The third point is you can join us to organize. So we have Tacoma DSA is having a housing forum on April 23rd. we'll drop the information in that in the chat as well. That's about home in Tacoma and making sure we have good housing and green housing for every Tacoman that needs it. This coalition is hosting an advocacy training in early May. That date is to be determined, so make sure to follow us on social media so you get the information for that. We're also going to send out all of this information after this, so folks will have all of that so they can plug into all the resources and the links and the tools. There's a lot. The fourth way you can support this work today is by signing our petitions. So we have a Tacoma Green New Deal petition that's going to be dropped in the chat. Folks should sign that and add their name to the growing chorus of voices demanding that we make really, really smart plans by investing in climate. And then there's a Home in Tacoma petition to make sure that we have a really bold Home in Tacoma phase 2 that prioritizes transit-oriented development, make sure that we have protections for renters, and does a whole lot of different things to make sure we're growing equitably. We're getting to the end of our time here today, which is actually so shocking and surprising. So we're going to stick around for 10 minutes after this to answer some questions more. But we really wanted to say thank you to our funders. We couldn't do this work without these really important dollars to allow us to bring together a diverse perspective of folks, right? Not everyone here is doing the same work, but we're all gathered around this one platform because we know that it's going to change the fate of Tacoma. So I'm going to stop screen sharing and we're just going to hang around basically for 10 minutes to make sure folks' questions get answered. I'll have Aaron kind of help us get some questions in the chat filtered through, and yeah. Alrighty, so let's see what questions we have. Some of these might be reiterated as well. So some folks mentioned, how do we make sure that we prioritize labor unions in the Tacoma Green New Deal? So part of our Good Green Jobs platform is making sure that the City of Tacoma works with folks like Workforce Central and labor unions to make sure that we have job development programs to transition people into the green economy. We know that fossil fuel workers and workers from extractive industries are not our enemies. They're our peers, and that they deserve to be taken care of in the transition to a green economy. So that is definitely something that we are thinking through. How do we bolster labor unions, because they're so important to our democracy in America, and they're really important to the quality of life that people live. You didn't see a lot of language in this presentation on that, just because it's such a robust platform and there is so much information. So yeah, but we just want to answer one of those questions. There's another question I saw about hydropower. So we haven't gotten into the specifics of hydropower just because we know that there's a lot of efforts to transition away from some hydropower that is hurting salmon. And we don't want to be overly prescriptive to the role of hydropower in this, but we do want to make sure that it's done equitably. So in the policy priority for getting to net zero carbon emissions, there is a component in there that we would want to mandate that the city study how to equitably power this power Tacoma. A lot of our power comes from Tacoma Public Utilities, so that's also an area we have to gauge too. And obviously the other chunk of that is from Puget Sound Energy. So the city can only have so much role in some of that, but we do know that making sure that the city is doing its part to push on those levers is really important. And part of that is probably going to be studying. Part of that's going to be building out community solar. Part of that's going to be making sure that we increase efficiency in Tacoma. Is there any other questions I missed, Aaron? Is there any that we want to make sure get answered?
I think most questions, let me turn my video on. Oh, never mind, I can't. I think most questions in the chat have been answered or addressed mostly as they've come up. I'll reiterate for folks, like if you're at this event today, you're on our list, we got you. So anything Tacoma Green New Deal related in the future, you will get information about, and it's going to be on our social media, all of the groups represented here today, social media, newsletters, all that kind of stuff. But we have, from the registration, we have everybody's email addresses. So you're all good to go. But if there were questions that did not get answered, because there was a lot of great conversation in the chat, please just, if we don't get them answered, then let us know. And actually, I'll raise this question. So Kathy asked a question about the port development projects. So that's a federal funding program. That's not in reference to just our local Port of Tacoma here. And so, there's a federal effort to electrify our ports and to reduce the dependence on fossil fuels of our ports. So, but I know what you're talking about, Kathy. We have our eye on the Blair dredging project. But what Marquise was referencing to earlier was about federal funding.
Awesome. So yeah, we're coming to the end of our program today. We somehow were early. I don't know if that's ever happened in my whole history of organizing, so that's very rare. But folks are invited to our office. We're hosting a mixer from 4:30 to 6 to just gather with community. We'll see if it's rainy or not, but we do have a porch and a balcony that folks can hang out at. We're gonna have the doors open. Some folks will be masked. We have an air purifier as well, so folks should come on down by. I'll have Aaron drop our office location in the chat to make sure folks do have that. But again, we're having a Tacoma Green New Deal mixer afterwards, so we want to all hang out, eat some snacks, and yeah, we really want to see you. So if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to drop in the chat because we'll hang around just a couple more minutes to answer those. But if folks hop off, we hope to see you at the office, and keep in tune because we're going to be doing a lot more as a coalition, and we really need all your support to make sure that we're doing this equitably, that we're pulling on all the different pieces that can get us forward, and that we're also holding each other accountable as we move forward as partners in this work, right? Because we're all approaching it from different spots, but we have a lot of insight to add. Already our groups, you guys all want to say goodbye to folks before you go?
A round of applause to Marquise for being our MC. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody who spoke. You all did excellent jobs. Very informative. And thanks to everyone for attending.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all. For folks who are going to attend as well, Erin is giving instructions on where to park if you're going to come to the office. Yeah, so there's instructions in there as well. And we hope to see you all.
Great.
So we're going to end this in a second, and take care, everybody. Appreciate it.
Oh, hey, Marquise,
Okay,
I think I'll just say it out loud in case folks aren't following the chat. So we're at 535 Dock Street. We're right above the Rock the Dock bar, if that helps you navigate. And if you can park inside the dock building, it's a Friday night, so it's kind of hard to find parking inside the building. The parking lot outside turns to paid parking at 6 p.m. So as long as you're not outside at 6 p.m., you're good to go. You won't have to pay. So I just always recommend folks park inside if they can.
Okay, great.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you so much.
Have a great day. Happy Friday.
Yeah,
Happy
take care.
weekend
See
to
you at the
everybody coming
space.
in. We're excited to see you soon.
Okay.